Welcome along to the Face Off series, and today I am looking at Light Horse. In my opinion, Light Horse is probably undervalued and underappreciated. It can be very effective in the hands of a good player. You can get around the back of the enemy, you can charge units. Fragmented units especially are often going to rout if charged by some of these units. Great for scouting, great for harassing the enemy and disrupting enemy cavalry. You also give the enemy decisions to make, because if you've got your light horse around an enemy cav unit, are you going to ignore these light horse or charge them? If you ignore them, they're probably going to disrupt you. If you charge them, then you're wasting points, because especially Javelin Horse only costs 24, regular cav 36, 40, 50, and you're not going to catch them. So just really all-round versatile unit. If you've been following my videos, when I did my top 10 lists in classical and in medieval, I think Javelin Horse got into my top 10 just because they're great value for money and they can do so much. They're also good at blocking enemy cav. If you've got a line and enemy cavs coming up for rear charge, if you put this unit in front of enemy cav, then it's got to charge it and it's going to just move away, not going to catch these light horse units, and it just gives you extra time to try to deal with that enemy cav unit. It actually happened in one of my battles recently where some enemy cav got round the back of my line. I had one spare Javelin Horse unit. I charged into the rear of the enemy cav unit, just made that unit turn and enter into melee with that light horse. Okay, the light horse lost in the next round, but that was enough, because by that time I had some more cav coming up for the charge. So it really saved me from getting rear charged. They're just effective in so many ways. When I went through the lists in medieval, you don't really get that many armies with 5 or more light horse. There were only, when I counted, there were only 15 factions that can field 5 or more light horse units. It was some of the Spanish lists, Castilian, Aragonese, Portuguese, some of the Italian lists and Arab lists. Those kind of armies had access to 5 or more light horse, but then you look at more northern European armies, most English lists don't have access to light horse. I think there's only one, English continental list that has access to some of the Irish light horse, maybe only 3 units. French don't have any light horse. Germans, most of those armies don't have any light horse. There's just one, I think German Imperial has access to about 3 of the Hungarian light horse archers, but apart from that, most armies don't have any. So often you don't see a lot of light horse in medieval battles. When I did my tests, I was testing out charges and flank attacks, and I learned a lot from making this video, I have to be honest, and hopefully I can share some of that with you now. So when a unit was engaged, an enemy unit was disrupted and engaged, I got my light horse around the back of it. You think it's the ideal opportunity to get rear charges off, especially with Javelin Horse with the light spear. They get that plus 50. But in my tests, it was a waste of time to charge disrupted units in the rear. Why? It's just not going to do anything. In terms of percent, it was about 4 or 5% chance to fragment that unit. So a disrupted enemy unit, heavy infantry, they've still got that +1 on you. The only time it becomes useful is if you're trying to get it to 75% combat strength. These units were on 480. So if that unit is close to 360, which is 75% combat strength, then that gets that additional -1 on the cohesion check, and then your chances of fragmenting a unit with a rear charge, a disrupted unit with a rear charge, becomes much better. It goes from about 4 or 5% to probably, as a rough estimate, 60-70% chance to fragment a unit. So it's a much better because of that additional -1 modifier. But in the early stages of a battle, or if the unit is nowhere near 75% strength, it's just not, even though it may appear like it's a good opportunity to get rid of charges, in my tests it's just not worth it. So it's better just maybe to charge skirmishers or wait, because you're not going to do anything with a disrupted unit that's not near 75%. Fragmented units, different story. If a fragmented unit gets rear charged, you have a good chance of disrupting. It's probably 60-70% chance to actually rout a unit that's fragmented. Then it becomes very worthwhile. So that was good to know. That was good to know. Casualties for rear charges were about 10 or 11. So again, if you're trying to work out when this unit is going to get to 75% combat strength, these charges averaged about 10 or 11 casualties. So that can be useful if it's in melee with another infantry unit. Those 10 or 11 casualties can be very useful. So that's something else to factor in. Evasions, when cavalry was charging these units, it worked out about 4% chance to catch these units, so not very likely at all. And 40% of the time during the evasion, I was getting casualties on these units. So if a regular cavalry unit was charging this unit, most of the time it was evading, and 40% of the time there's casualties that averaged around 3 or 4 was the average casualties, not much. Now, comparing them in impact and melee, as I've said, the Javelin Horse has got the light spear, so that's plus 50. So when Javelin Horse charges, say, light horse crossbowmen, they are 50 up on impact. They're 50 up as well against light horse archers. Evens against the Jinetes. In melee, the light crossbowmen, horse crossbowmen, are lightly protected. That's interesting. Lightly protected, because these units are unprotected. So these light horse crossbowmen are actually quite useful because they go to 12 up against Javelin Horse in melee. And the Javelin Horse in melee are evens against light horse archers. These Jinetes are 50 up on impact, but then they've also got the extra bonus of being protected. So they're actually 25 up against these units in melee. Apart from the light horse crossbowmen, there would be 13 up. So these are the best units overall, and the price is pretty good. They're 28, so for their performance, 28 is actually a really good price. I also tested these units out when firing upon various units. What did I find? So basically, the crossbowmen are better than Javelin Horse against armoured units, especially the men-at-arms, knights, fully armoured units. The range is the same for the light horse crossbowmen and the light horse archers against the men-at-arms. The range from 1 square was 2 to 14. The range for the Javelin Horse in terms of casualties was 2 to 8, so there's a big difference there. But not so much of a difference against protected units. Protected units, about the same. For the crossbowmen against something like Noble Cav, the casualty range was 6 to 20. Javelin Horse was actually 6 to 22. So the Javelin Horse actually does a lot better against protected, unarmoured units compared to armoured units. That's when you want the crossbowmen. That's where you get more of an advantage. Sergeants are armoured, and again the bowmen had an advantage over Javelin Horse. Against sergeants the range was 4 to 18, where it was 6 to 20 for both these units. Although I did find that it seemed to average out higher for these units. It seemed to be more of a difference than what the range indicated. So overall, Javelin Horse, you want to focus on protected units, unarmoured units, rather than armour. That's when you need your bowmen units. In terms of use and comparing these units, basically I think at early stages of the battle to middle of the battle, these bowman units are going to be great. You're going to get more casualties against more units with these kind of units. But then as you run out of ammo, gets from mid-game to end-game, that's when the Javelin Horse comes into its own, because you've got the light spear, that plus 50, and these units don't have the light spear or any impact capabilities, and that's when these units can be really, really effective. So I'd rather have the light crossbowmen at the beginning of a battle, and I'd rather have Javelin Horse at the end of the battle, in essence. If I had to rank these units, I would say, in my opinion, I would put the Jinetes as number 1, because they've got that plus 50 for light spear, plus they're protected, so they get that plus 25 in melee. Maybe it's close between Javelin Horse and the light horse crossbowmen. Maybe would I put light horse crossbowmen? I mean, that 26 is a good price for crossbowmen, and I like that they are lightly protected, so they're 12 up in melee against the Javelin Horse, so that's quite nice. So maybe they would just go into second spot and Javelin Horse would go third, or equal second, because that plus 50 for light spear is really effective towards the end of the battle. And probably last, at 4th, I'd put the light horse archers, because they're 28, they're more expensive than these guys, they're unprotected, they're more expensive than light horse crossbowmen, and yet they're not really better. And light horse crossbowmen are lightly protected, and they're only unprotected. So yeah, they would be the worst of the light horse, in my opinion. So there we go. That's a snapshot for you. If you've got any comments, leave them below. one thing I would say, I was considering, how many units should you take? When are these units effective? They're probably effective if you can take a few of them. I think just taking one or two, you're probably not going to get best use for them. You probably need, I would say, about 3 of them together is ideal. In my tests, actually, when I was testing them on cavalry, I had 3 units together, and quite often that third round of fire, that's when I was getting the disruptions and cohesion checks on the cavalry. 2 of them, it wasn't enough, but that third unit, that's when I got the cohesion check and the disruptions. So really, one piece of advice I would give is, if you're going to use light horse, probably take maybe 3 units, put them together, try to use them together as much as possible. One on its own is not going to disrupt anything really. 2 is probably not going to do much, but 3, that's when they really become quite dangerous. So if possible, that's how I would use them anyway. Okay, that's about it. If you've got any stories to tell about light horse, maybe I've left something out, maybe you got some tips, then please do leave your comments below. If you like the video, give it a like, subscribe. If you want me to focus my attentions on any particular units, then do leave comments below, and I will see you all again soon.